what better way to break a long unplanned hiatus than with the mid-year freakout tag? Yes, I am doing it an entire month late, so I'm not going to waste any more time with an intro that I don't even know how to do anyway. This tag is supposed to be done in late June, early July, because that's obviously halfway through the year. And it's basically a list of questions about reflecting on the past 6 months of reading and looking forward to the next 6 months of reading. I'm not going to do every single question because some of them just don't apply to me. So let's get started. First up is, what is the best book of 2019 that you have read so far? Obviously, it was not released in 2019, but I read it this year, and that is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by the inimitable Mackenzie Lee. If you have not had the good fortune to read this book, which I highly recommend you do, it is historical fiction that has wonderful characters who are very complex and very engaging, and sometimes really frustrating actually, but in a good way. And the story basically covers every single ism under the sun. I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads, and I've got the sequel right here, The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, and I'm super thrilled to read it because I loved this character so much. Next up, what is the best sequel of 2019 so far? Again, not published in 2019, but that definitely has to be The Tropic of Serpents by Marie Brennan. It's book 2 of the Memoirs of Lady Trent, basically set in an alternate Earth where there are dragons. And the books chronicle the early research expeditions of the premier dragon naturalist Isabella Trent, or Lady Trent, I should say. I don't understand nobility and their titles. It's so weird. If anyone can explain it to me, please leave a comment. It's a marvelously feminist book, and it's about a woman who's really constrained by the social role put on her, and she just can't be happy in it no matter how hard she tries. That's a little more the first book, but if you are a science nerd or a fantasy nerd or a feminist nerd, these books are great. If you're gonna put dragons in a book, you may as well actually explore them as animals, you know what I mean? Next up is a new release that I haven't read but want to, and this is On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. If you're not familiar with this book, then you've been living under a rock. If you've never heard of this author, then you've really been living under a rock. It's about a teenager named Bree who's an aspiring rapper, and she comes into a situation where her family is in such financial straits that she doesn't only want to make it and have a career as a rapper, she kind of has to in order to support her family. Like I said, I haven't read it yet, so that's basically all I know about the story, but I have heard some amazing things, so I'm really looking forward to it. Now, my most anticipated release of 2019, I have been waiting for this for so long, is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I have no idea what it's about, and I honestly do not want to find out until I physically pick up the book and open it, but I love The Night Circus. I've got it right here. The author has the most amazing prose I've ever read in my life. That actually makes me a little bit nervous because I'm afraid that her next book is not going to quite live up to the first one. At any rate, though, I'm still excited. If you haven't read this, read it. On a more negative note, the most disappointing book that I read in 2019 is Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. I've talked a little bit about this on my channel, and I've been promising a full review for months that I still haven't gotten to. But you know what? I've been busy. It's a long book. There's a lot to unpack here. Basically, I just thought that there were way too many character perspectives that made the story really confusing. And the brand new character, Marcella, is just very uninteresting. She's a woman made up of tropes who seems to only exist to cause trouble for the other characters, even though they're already dealing with a lot of other things. The alternating perspectives format that worked so well for the first book, Vicious, did not serve Vengeful's story. It did not make the book engaging, it just made it confusing. Biggest surprise of 2019 was actually released last year, but I read it this year, and that is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. I foolishly expected this to be similar to John Green's books, which, as someone who's been following both of them on YouTube for years, I really should not have expected that. At any rate, I enjoyed it so much more than I thought I would. This take on how the modern world would actually react to contact with aliens is so interesting, and I think a lot more realistic than what I read in other sci-fi books. One of the core themes of this book is the effects that fame has on your personal life, and I really did not expect that part to be so engaging, but it is. I don't care for stories about how hard it is to be famous, but this one actually kept my attention because it wasn't all woe is me, I have all of these problems because I'm famous. It's a genuine exploration of how that stuff can really benefit you and really hurt you. The main character is interesting. I genuinely mean that. She is interesting, just frustrating. God, it is hot in here. Sure you wouldn't mind if I put my hair up for once in a video. I can't deal with this heat right now. All right, so for the next question, my favorite new author of 2019 is one who actually published a book this year, and that is Nadia Bolz-Weber. She published Shameless in January. NBW, as my parents like to call her, is a pastor in Colorado who writes nonfiction books. She tends to be a very liberal Christian and uses storytelling techniques and language that would astonish a lot of people. And I really appreciate her most for this book, Shameless, A Sexual Revolution, because it goes in depth into the relationship between the church and sex and sexuality and what the Bible really has to say about it and where principles get misplaced and misapplied, and times when religious leaders just kind of miss the point, and times when they really don't. So if you want to read about sex and faith, this book's for you. My newest favorite character of 2019 is Sarai from Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is honestly some of the best fantasy that I have ever read. Anyway, I really like Sarai because she's a very morally gray character, but in a very sweet way. She has such a fascinating emotional journey that's very mature for a 17-year-old. She's lonely, she's empathetic, and she grapples with her moral compass. That really hits the sweet spot for a character with me. I love it when they grapple with their moral compass. Really no fun if you think you're right all the time. A book I read this year that just made me happy is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This is a companion novel to Fangirl and kind of a satire of Harry Potter. I love this book so much because it's just so pure. It was funny and entertaining, and I thought it had some interesting world building, and I liked the way that Rainbow Rowell poked fun at Harry Potter in ways that actually didn't hurt my feelings, which is impressive because I am wholly devoted to that book series. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying I'm in love, okay? But I made 2 whole videos about this book, so I'm going to leave them in the cards and in the description so you can check them out. I almost didn't answer this question, but my favorite book to movie adaptation kind of barely counts, but it was How to Train Your Dragon 3. I know jack all about the original book/books. I haven't read it/them. I just know that it technically is a book to film adaptation. I think the only reason I didn't cry during this movie was because I already cried during one of the trailers. I'm actually kind of ashamed. That movie broke my heart, and if you've seen it, you know why. The next question is, what is the most beautiful book that you've acquired so far this year? I assumed that they mean the cover, so that's what I went with. And it was a difficult choice. Ultimately, first place goes to The Hazelwood, which I haven't read yet, but I was just in a bookstore with my sister, and we don't just go into a bookstore and leave without buying something. Blue and green are my favorite colors, and I just love this design so much. I think it is absolutely stunning. I've got a runner-up though, which is a book that I did finish reading recently, and that is Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. This design just has such a beautiful romantic mystery about it, and I think it matches the tone of the story very, very well. If I may go on a quick spiel about it for a minute, this book is pretty dang good. It's brand new, it came out this year. It's the first in a fantasy series based off of Korean folklore, which is something that I have not had much exposure to, so I thought it was really interesting. This book is awesome. It does have a romantic subplot. Just warning you. And it would seem that I finally made it to the last question, which is, what are the books you absolutely have to finish reading this year? Now, I am in the middle of Muse of Nightmares, which is the sequel to Strange the Dreamer, and so far it's just as beautiful as the first book. So I expect to finish it relatively quickly. Next up is another nonfiction book called Lab Girl, and it's a memoir about a female scientist and her experiences growing up and being a little bit weird. I actually haven't read the summary in a while. But yeah, the author has a deep love for the natural world that I can definitely relate to, and I hope to learn some things from her story. Of course, I need to get to The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy because I have to know what happens. This is an older one, but I just acquired it. It's Brown Girl in the Ring by Nalo Hopkinson. I heard about this book from Onyx Pages. I'm going to link her channel in the description box. The description is kind of vague, but it seems to be about a hypothetical society that has massive socioeconomic disparity, because it's fantasy. You can't have fantasy without massive socioeconomic disparity. And a lot of really rough circumstances leads a young woman to unlocking a whole bunch of stuff about gods and magic. And like I said, it's pretty vague. I've never read Nalo Hopkinson's work before, but it has definitely received some high praise that I've found. So I definitely look forward to this. The last book, I just know it's going to be physically painful for me. And that book is Internment by Samira Ahmed. Books don't usually make me cry, but I'm willing to bet anything this book is going to make me cry. YA kind of punches me in the gut in general, and this is a very, very, very real, possible near future dystopia where Muslims are being rounded up and imprisoned in internment camps. And this is about a young woman in one of those camps. So God, this is gonna make me cry. I think this book is either gonna take me an incredibly long time to get through, or I'm going to finish it in like 3 days. But we'll see. Now, those books, that's not the order that I'm going to read those books in, because I have no idea which one I'm going to read after I'm done with Muse of Nightmares. I don't plan out my book reading schedule. Who does that? Some people do that, not me. So this has been the mid-year freakout tag. I have officially freaked out. I have been really busy. I'm hoping to keep making videos more consistently like I did in the beginning of the year, but I honestly make no promises. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more content from my channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And how do you outro?